softness. There is courage in choosing to heal, in setting down the heavy lifting, and in claiming your peace as a non-negotiable right. We are building the infrastructure for impact. A collective space where the diaspora can find tools, community, and the unshakable permission to slow down, process, and thrive. Your healing is not a luxury, it is the foundation. Join the movement. Let's build a softer, stronger tomorrow together.
Blessings and welcome to Black Mental Health Matters. My name is Steph Jones, also known as Lale Kalandra, and I'm a therapist and mindfulness life coach. We are streaming live to United States of Africa on the Black Mental Health Matters YouTube channel and on LinkedIn Live. Today, we have an amazing panel that we will be discussing understanding postpartum depression through a CBT lens. I am pleased to be with you ladies. I will let you introduce yourself and then we can jump right into the conversation. And I'll start with who I see first. Tahara, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. My name is Tahara Debarrows. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing for over 8 years. I own my own group practice called A Journey to Healing Counseling out of Connecticut, where we service women with maternal mental health, and that is our specialty. So we also use EMDR and other modalities, trauma-informed modalities for that population.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bernadette, please introduce yourself.
Greetings, everyone. Hi, family. My name is Bernadeth Betchi. I am a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I'm also a decolonial and intersectional scholar, specifically in Black maternal mental health. And I am also a human rights activist. And I would say that I came into this work more as I believe to understand that it's my mission on this side of the veil, and in trying to help mothers and families navigate, the different stages of life, and motherhood is one of them, and then mental health is another part of it. And but I really came to this awakening when I had my first son, and also myself have lived through postpartum and understood a bit better the conversation through my reality and speaking with others, and really wanted to make sure that I make an impact, and try to build the best bridges and offer the best care for our mothers. So it's an honor for me to be here this morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I love that you mentioned on this side of the veil. I want to touch into that. That's awesome. That's beautiful. LC, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Elsie Deshay. I am a neonatal infant feeding specialist. I'm also a doula. Been doing that for about 19 years, and I have been a journalist for the last 7, a reproductive migrations journalist. So I split my time between clinical care and advocacy for perinatal conditions, risk conditions for women and babies, between conception and postpartum in terms of feeding outcomes. And also, as a writer and an editor, I've been in several newsrooms since 2020, trying to oversee better representation across the diaspora for Afro and Indigenous peoples as we cross borders, particularly during pregnancy and early family life.
Wow. I love the language, the veil, the crossing borders. Yes. Let's jump into that. So we are going to be, talking about postpartum depression through a CBT lens. And I love that we're having these conversations because it's been so taboo in our community. It's been so, hush hush, and no one says anything and no one speaks about it. So these are the things that we have to talk about and share so that we can know we're not the only ones who go through this. All right. So leading into the first question, in many Black communities, we mothers, right, we are expected to carry everything and expected to be strong. In speaking with CBT, how do we navigate CBT to help mothers who have that challenge of always having to be strong? And anyone can jump in. Well, maybe I'll go to you, Tahara, because you probably have some extensive experience with CBT.
Of course, yes. That's actually one of my specialties is CBT, and I've actually developed a webinar on on using CBT for postpartum depression. So I would say that I identify as a Black woman, so I know that strong Black woman, that cognition and that sometimes it's just not helpful, right? Because I think it often, it comes from resilience and survival, but it also can be costly emotionally, right? To always just have that pressure on you. So in CBT, I really make sure that we validate someone's experience always, right? And then also really identify those automatic thoughts that aren't helpful. So a lot of times we feel like if we ask for help, that means that I'm failing, or, I'm a mom, I'm a new mom, so I should be able to handle this. It should just come naturally. And that's not always the case, right? Some people believe that if I'm struggling, that means I'm not a good mom. So identifying those cognitions and really saying, like, what's the evidence that you have for this, right? Would you say this to your sister or your friend? Like, are these helpful cognitions to really have? And the goal is really not perfection around when you're doing the reframes. It's really just making sure that they are more flexible in their thinking and really seeing that seeking help is a strength. It's not a weakness, right? Having that awareness of, I need support. It's okay. So.
It's okay. We need support, Bernadette. I see you. It's okay. Thank you. It's okay. Black moms, we need, it's okay for us to have support. We're not weak. It's okay. So that's perfect. Bernadette, please go right ahead.
I just wanted to add two things to what you're all saying. So I think maybe to backtrack a little bit, because I find that maybe we're very used to the language, but for anybody watching, just to maybe again, just bring them along, just like when we say CBT, what is CBT? Like if I had to explain it to my 5-year-old what CBT is, so basically cognitive behavioral therapy. So what is that? It's a tool. We use that to try to help people that are going through, and then, anxiety, depression. What is anxiety? When your body is not feeling right, when your mind is telling you stories and then you start believing them, and then there's a disconnection. So when we speak about CBT, for all of us watching, just like this is what we're referring to. We're using this tool to try and care for people in their very specific lived experiences, right? And then to add to that, I'm a storyteller. I like to bring back a bit to like what I have experienced, because I find that sometimes it reaches out more people. And so I think often you start feeling what you're experiencing without being able to say, sometimes you don't have the language, right? So after my son, there's a beautiful gift in front of me, and I'm a mother. I always want to be a mother. And so what is happening? I have this gift. Birth was traumatic. So I understand the disconnect. And also, and then after that, he had some health problems. So it added to the whole emotional fatigue and everything. But I think looking back and after having done the work, for me, it was that I've seen my mother. She's had 5. She's had 5 in children. She's raised 5 children in a country that wasn't hers, the country that adopted her. And then she was strong. She was the first up, the last to bed. She did all of that. She was organized, everything. So how, what is happening? What's wrong with me, right? Because I never had, I think, visually speaking, I didn't really see her in that vulnerability of like, motherhood is not easy, and there's a range of emotions when you're having a child, and then you're all experiencing those probably internally, even though they're not showing it externally. And it was the first time as an adult that I sat with my mother, because when I had my first child, she came, but all my children, she came and she helped me transition through the fourth trimester for many months, which actually I think that's the best gift. Like, if you don't receive any diapers, nothing, like having someone there help you transition the fourth trimester is the best gift someone can give you. But it was the first time we had, after my first son, we had an honest conversation around her telling me, actually, it was really hard for me too. I just also never had the experience of a woman before me showing me that other side of motherhood. So, oh, okay, now we're talking. So I think that not only holding space for women and coming forward to us and sharing their experiences, but also showing like that side, the vulnerability. It is okay to show that it is not hard. It doesn't mean that, we love like children less or whatever, but it just means that we're human, and that that word resilience that we have so well appropriated maybe doesn't fit us all, or maybe we should redefine what that means, right? We should redefine what that means, and we should actually be more open in sharing the other side of it, and the side that doesn't show perfection, and the side that doesn't show that we have all of our emotions together and everything together. So I guess I just wanted to add that to what has been said.
Fantastic. Thank you for that addition. And thank you for backtracking us to explain what CBT is so we can take people along with the journey. Much appreciated. Also, I love that you are displaying that we are the ones breaking the cycle of not speaking about our issues. Your mom was experiencing those things, but we were told to be quiet. And because we're women, and depending on where we are on the diasporan spectrum, you really have to carry everything. You don't have assistance. It's almost seen as shameful to talk about struggles that you have. So we're breaking that cycle. We're speaking about it. So thank you for sharing that. And also, let me backtrack. I think everyone might have mentioned, though, if you were a mom, like I know you mentioned it, Bernadette. I'm not sure if anyone else did, but you guys have mentioned how you support, Black moms in that space. Like, there's help out there, and we don't have to be silent anymore. So thank you for sharing that. LC, please share. And even so, we're talking about CBT, right? It's the focus, but also, as Black women in general, there are a lot of stigmas put on us, so we can always fit in that lens too. LC, please, if you'd like to share on that.
I'm getting some feedback when I'm listening, so I hope everybody else's sound is a little bit better than mine. So I am a counselor, and I've been trained in several different types of counseling. I have 2 socio and psychology based degrees, and then journalism, and then a perinatal health degree. And what I appreciate about CBT, so I am a mother, I have 4 children, and they range from 6 to 15. So I've got a full house and a full life that I am very grateful for, that obviously comes with its own demands. And for almost 20 years now, I have deeply enjoyed. I could have, I was pre-med, I could have done a lot of things. I had wanted to be an obstetrician, and then I wanted to be a midwife. And I'm very happy that I'm a neonatal infant feeding specialist. I have my own, licensure with that. I think infant feeding, there's less than 2% of us on the planet are Black in infant feeding specialties. So I'm extremely proud and very stubborn about being part of that representation for obvious reasons. Been working with the rest of my colleagues in the psychosocial aspect. I think what is helpful about CBT is twofold. There's a cultural compatibility between CBT and Blackness in terms of the Black experience. I don't want to make projections because of the enormous, part of being Black is being reduced to prejudices that are thrust upon you based on our experience. That more or less is being Black. at least from the external point of view, right? And the ethnic diversity that we all maintain and celebrate is within it, right? So there's always that tension between the inner identity and the outward behavior of other people based on what they see within us. And I think what resonates the most about CBT, particularly in my work as I'm looking at comparing health outcomes across populations and across different continents and everything else, is that CBT, it simplifies a practice that we already have in our oratory history, which is taking the things that we've struggled with in the past and refashioning them into something that motivates us to continue in the future in a way that is positive and pleasant, contributes to our own well-being and to our community. And by that, I mean, we're all talking about like, how do we reframe, right? That's what it's called clinically. From a decolonial standpoint, it's really re-envisioning. It's taking pain and asking, what can I do with this, And that is one of the only ways that anybody who is Black in this world has learned to survive. I think the other thing about that, specifically as a mother, is that it prepares us so beautifully for parenting. Because as a mother, as you raise your child, if you want to instill the resilience that you're trying to experience within yourself, you're going to spend the entirety of their development validating them and reframing their experiences in ways that either motivate them to move forward or allow them to feel stable in themselves in spite of a world that's full of chaos in order to remain staunch. And so I think specifically CBT within Black communities, within the fam context of Blackness, has a greater propensity for effectiveness. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's certainly what I observe in my practice in my career.
Wow. 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 That's what I have to say to that. And to decolonize CBT is something that is so beneficial to all of us, because it allows us to maintain our identity and walk in the freedom of what it is, right? So I love that. I do want to transition into another question. Speaking of CBT, right? How can CBT support mothers who have experienced pregnancy loss, maybe having their babies in NICU, or they had those difficult postpartum experiences? For anyone watching, we want to make sure that we're allowing them to see that this modality works and it's helpful. And Elsie, I love that you mentioned that it is great for pre-parenting, right? Like, you can never plan enough to be a parent, but if you want to kind of till the ground a little bit and get some resources, I agree that CBT is one of those things because of the reframing and reshaping. So can anyone, and you've had those personal experiences or anything you've dealt with in your professional practice, how can CBT help with some of those difficulties that moms experience?
I've got to jump off in less than 10 minutes, so apologies. I'm going twice in a row. I'm sure Tahara is going to have plenty to say about this, I would imagine, and I'll go back and look at the recording so I make sure I can hear it. What was your question? You were talking about, can you repeat it for me? I just lost it.
Absolutely. How can CBT help moms who have maybe dealt with having NICU babies, postpartum and things like that?
So when I'm in Canada now, and so I've spent the last 20 years of my life split between my home state, which is California, living in Germany and Europe, and now I'm in Canada, all in various assignments. And when I was in California, I worked in the UC healthcare system and also in public clinics, like outpatient clinics. And because we were doing risk mitigation, but I'm from Los Angeles, so anybody who's from, any of these enormous cities, the amount of patients that you're seeing is also something else, right? And like there's something to be said for rural care, that's its own experience, but these high load urban environments are also really intense in their own way. And so we have Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Miami. They have Houston, have and Atlanta have the burden of these very, very high amounts of and risk for prenatal birth, neonatal, stays, particularly for Black and Hispanic women, all of these other things. I would say CBT. What I saw was that CBT increased people's threshold for tolerance of discomfort. it sort of became the line between like, I am very upset about this and I am falling into despair. There is some place clinically when you're watching your patients where it's like, I'm upset, but my anger, which is valid, righteous anger, my grief, etc., is moving me towards advocacy for myself, in the sense of that there's a certain place when people are upset that they're still asking for help, they're demanding answers, right? All of these other things, in spite of the fact that they're upset. And then a threshold gets passed when people go into like resignation, and they stop participating in their own care and their children's care because they feel like it's useless. And particularly in situations where you're dealing with populations that are profoundly targeted with prejudice and marginalization, they have every reason to be resigned. So this is not me suggesting that that isn't a logical response. But what I've noticed with CBT is twofold. When people have access to practitioners who represent and can relate to their experience. So I love seeing my colleagues who are in psych. So I'm like looking at Tahara like lovingly, because there's not a lot of us, there's not enough of us, right? And there's also, we are dealing with the same prejudices that we're trying to fight on behalf of our patients, and getting pushed out of our own careers, right? While we're trying to reduce the very risks that we're dealing with. But I think CBT, as it pertains to loss and threat of loss, right? So all of these quote unquote higher risk outcomes, and the risk factor, frequently we now know most of the time it's nothing internal. The risk factor is the high likelihood of negligence and prejudice and downright hostility, right? From the people who are upholding bias within the system. CBT works as like a mental stopgap to tell you your pain is valid and your need for care is, like, you have a right to care, you have a right to restitution, you have a right to all of the rest of these things. So I think the it can instill a sort of resilience in you, as long as it's being supported by your provider. You have to have at least one who's helping, or a doula or anything else, that reduces the long-term impact of loss. Which isn't to say that you're not going to feel grief, but again, it's sort of that line between enough anger to still advocate for myself, right? And sort of be fired up to take care of me and do what I can for my baby, and not let this doctor talk to me like this because my therapist said that my feelings are real, right? Versus just completely disengaging from the world, from the outcomes, from the circumstances that you're in. I don't know if that makes sense. So that's something that I have observed that I think, it's not a big enough difference for me, because I'm an idealist and I obviously don't want any of these conditions to exist, but it is still a risk reduction. It's still a risk reduction practice that is slowing the potential impact of racism within clinical care. I don't know, it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. So like, that's my view on that.
Perfect sense. Perfect sense. It makes beyond sense. But before you hop off, thank you for everything you shared. Before you hop
You're
off,
welcome.
can you just share how people can reach you, like where they can find you on social
Oh,
media, please?
I'm most active on LinkedIn. I've got the vast majority of my followers there, and I like host most of my content there. But I do have a blog on Substack. It's called Digital Dom. It's called Digital Dom because I am, in fact, a dominatrix. I know I get this question all the time. So I spent the early part of my career doing a lot of risk reduction in people who were high risk for unplanned pregnancies, who were in sex work and sex trafficking. I don't do body work, so I've never. Hi. Yes, can you please come off the live? Mama is on something. I need you to go back over there. Sorry, I try to keep my kids' faces off. It's my youngest.
I agree.
Yeah, no. Do my best, but they don't always do their best. So you gotta, you gotta do what you can do. Yeah, no. So you can read more about my work there. When I say I don't do body work, like I've never done stripping, I don't do physical sex work, any of that, but I do psychological sex work, advocacy, and various other things. And so people can find me on LinkedIn. People can find me on my Digital Dom page. I might be slow to respond, but you can reach out to me there. Such a pleasure. How do I? Bernadeth, not Bernadette. And Tahara, very nice to meet
Yeah.
you.
Bernadeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and Tahara.
Yes.
So much else. Thank you so much, LC. Enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate you. Bernadette or Tahara, please jump in on that question. If I can reiterate it if you need me to.
I can go. So for me, I think another aspect of what I think about in terms of women who've experienced these things you talked about, like the NICU admissions and just difficult postpartum journey, they often have these beliefs that are ingrained in them, like my body failed me. I failed my baby if I can't breastfeed, right? Baby's not latching, or I can't trust myself. Talking about when those postpartum cognitions or thoughts can get really scary for moms, like the baby doesn't love me, or like I can't trust myself with baby. That I'll be able to wake up on time to feed them, different things like that. And we really want to make sure that we are separating facts from interpretations. And one of the CBT tools that I really like is behavioral activation. And I know it's like the hardest because when you're depressed, you don't really want to do anything, right? But you have this baby here. So so you do have to do at least the minimum to take care of yourself and baby. But if you are experiencing grief because you experience loss, right? Obviously, that can lead to withdrawal and isolation. So for me, when working with clients, it's really starting small, really small goals. Just take a walk outside, just get some air. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. What's 5 things you can see, 4 things you could smell, you know what I mean? Just really, really basic. Talking with the support. If you are a clinician, you have to be the one giving your clients resources. There's no excuse, right? Really just helping them because at this time, everything just seems so scary, and trauma can really change the way we interpret our experiences. So I think it's important that we really focus on, when you are treating this population, trauma focused approaches like EMDR, like I said before, that really benefit from reprocessing. And yeah, I think that it's treatable, right? What mom is going through, they might not feel like it is, but it is definitely treatable.
Without a doubt. And thank you for giving that overview. I thought that was perfect. And it gives practical, like if there's moms watching or even those who support moms, right? They give this practical steps that they can suggest or talk about, or things you want to mention with your therapist. Thank you so much for that, for like that personal practicality. Much appreciated. Bernadette, please feel free to go right ahead.
Yes, I wanted to maybe add on a little bit on that, the theme of grief. When moms go through either traumatic birth, baby in NICU, health issues, the loss of a baby, what we're sharing, what Tahara was sharing made me think, when I was looking for my committee, for my PhD committee, I had a few interviews with a few people, and just to see like who would be the best fit. And I remember I always, or mostly, introduce myself the same way. I think it's important for folks. So if we're thinking in a decolonial lens, so who are you before what you do? So I like to just let you know a bit about the person, and then after that maybe I'll add a little bit of what I do. And so anyway, so I'm introducing myself. Well, she introduced herself first, and also when you're in academia, usually you're trained to start with like, these are the letters after my name, and this is why. And so that's how they introduced themselves. Then I introduced myself with, I'm a mother and all of that. And then she asked me to backtrack. Can I do this again? And I thought it was lovely, and so she did. And then in her introduction, she said, I wrestled for many years with how to introduce myself because I'm a mother, but I have one living and a few that, have gained wings. And she told me, and then it opened up to sharing her story. And quite frankly, still seeing me experiencing her live, still mourning her experiences, right? And wrestling with, well, what do I say to people, right? Like, I'm a mother of 4, but then there's only one here, and then people leading with questions, and sometimes the questions are a bit like they're not always framed in the best way, which can reinstate trauma, all of these things. But anyway, so it opened up our conversation to a larger theme, which was grief and which was shame. And so I think with CBT, something that we can use that tool to, just a bit like Tahara said, and also Elsie, to separate or to understand the facts, the emotions, and to understand, okay, this is how you're feeling and this is what's happening, right? Because when we are in survival state of trauma or anything like that, often our brain, what it does is just like, it has convinced you that what you're feeling is what it is, right? The brain is so powerful. Like, that's the narrative that you keep telling yourself. That's the language that you use, right, to speak about yourself. And I know this because when I had my son, and after the birth, which I explained it was a traumatic birth, there's very few positive and uplifting words in my mind, right? People kept telling me, no, like, look at what you did, but I felt completely disconnected, and that's actually what the signals that my brain was sending to the rest of my body. So really focusing on the grief aspect and the language in which, like, the language they use to describe how they feel and how they are. And not to say that they should name it. I think it is important to name it, because naming it will actually, then you focus, okay, this is how you feel. Why do you feel that way? And then you can expand on the conversation. But it's important not to stay in that cycle. That's what we're trying to do, not to stay in that cycle. We need to mourn, we need to release, and finding different ways to mourn and to release. And one thing that I do, and I'll end with that, thing that I do is I've been a dancer. I've used dance my entire life, just as something that I love to do just for myself. But and in our cultures, and I'm from Cameroon, a beautiful country in Africa, and in our culture, and I think in a lot of, I'll use the word Black cultures, I'll use it very intentionally here. Music and dance and movement is just, it's part of our DNA, right? We use it like very naturally. And so dance had been part of my life my entire life. And then when I had my son, and went through a very difficult 4th trimester, it was the first time in my life that I felt so disconnected from this body that I had trusted as a tool to dance, to feel, my entire life. And then I went back to a dance class, one of those dance classes, mommy and baby. And my friend invited me to one, and it was the first time in my life, well, not in my life, but since giving birth, that I felt my body again, and I felt connected to my body. So since then, I have been teaching my own, I call them Afro celebrations, where I teach to parents, but also just to a group of people. And I say teach, but I'm not really, I shouldn't use teach. I should use the word guide. I guide people into, going, like, leaving their brain a little bit, like being less cerebral, and then going more into their bodies, and inviting emotions that are kind of circulating within their bodies, and trying to dance with it, and then hopefully eventually release. So embodiment. How do we embody our emotions? So why am I saying this is because I think when we are acknowledging what a mother is going through, we should also ask, what makes you feel connected to your body? For me, dance and music is. If you really want to get me in my feels, and usually when I feel like there's something that needs to be released, I need to cry a good cry, there's certain music that I will put so I can really trigger something in me. So getting to know the person you're working with, holding space, and then asking them, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel, the most connected with your body, which is what you're trying to do right now because you're feeling so disconnected and you're too much in your brain. So let's go back into our bodies. And so, yeah, these I think are some of the things I wanted to add about like grief, language, and then how to now mourn and mourn in a way that's practical and that's useful to try and move forward into our mourning and our grieving experience.
Absolutely. And you really brought up the topic of going back to those kind of ancestral ways that our people, right, the African diaspora, we have used forever since the beginning of time, our time, right? We've used dance, we've used music to lift the souls. We use those circles of guidance and the village concept, right? We have to get back to those spaces, right? And sometimes in westernized culture, we believe that we have to go through it alone, right? That you have a baby, you just have to experience it alone. But no, we need to get back to the village. And I even know there are some ceremonies and rituals where the mother takes a bath, the baby takes a bath. There's certain leaves and certain herbs used and all that. I won't say we have to. It would be awesome for us to get back there, right? Everyone could choose their own postpartum path. It would be awesome for us to get back there on the diaspora because that is what our ancestors did. And that helped us to navigate through life, right? Finding that thing that brings that spark back. And I want to say this, and then I want to go on to the next question, right? But this topic is like bringing up so much, especially as a mom, as a new mom, right? It's like you're never going to get back to your old self. So let's throw that notion out. Oh, I want to return back to normal. Throw that out. Rid yourself of that. There is no normal. There is a new normal. There is a new you. And I have come to the revelation that when you have a baby, you too are reborn with the baby. You too have just stepped into a new life. My baby is 7 months. I am 7 months. And if we are not mothering the mother as we're mothering the child, we're failing our mothers. Okay. So yes, thank you. You both have shared amazing things. And again, the practicality. We're talking about CBT. I think sometimes when you say CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, your mind, if you're not familiar with it, you can get a little afraid. Those sound like three big words. Cognitive behavioral, what? You guys have reduced, I'm not calling it dumbed down. I don't really like that phrase. You have made it layman's terms where you have taken the scary out of it. We don't have to be afraid of it. We actually should be leaning into it because it'll help us navigate. So I wanted to just jump in and say that. But then transition, unless someone else has something to say on that, I want to transition into, because I started talking about maybe some of the things that will keep us from entering into these therapeutic spaces as moms. In your experiences, what have you seen, the barriers, the hurdles, the stumbling blocks that keep moms from entering into those spaces where they can experience CBT? And then how do we navigate around those spaces?
Oh, I could definitely speak to the cost, right? Depending on where you live, lack of insurance. A lot of times we want providers that look like us. Nothing wrong with that, right? Maybe we can assume that they have a similar or the same experiences. So if there's a lack of culturally responsive providers in your area, childcare issues, transportation issues, a lot of times our moms, we have to return to work early. We don't have the option of staying home for a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? 6 weeks, 4 weeks, right back. Fear of judgment from these providers as well. A lot of times we have the stigma of child services being involved, right? Because maybe, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Someone's going to call child services on me, or just a lot of medical mistrust and mistrust in that area, which duly noted, right? Like it's an experience. It's realities that we talked about. I think Elsie had talked about before, just like that experience historically that we've had with the medical field being Black, and also in our own families. Just pray about it. You'll get over it. Grandma had 20 kids. She didn't work 3 jobs, and she didn't cry. She didn't complain. And it's not helpful, right? It's not helpful. But in my practice is like about 90% telehealth. So I feel like in terms of, with providers, offering telehealth is important, making sure that we are partnering with the community. the faith community, anything that has to do with parenting and moms, making sure that there's peer support for mom as well. And obviously, as a provider, making sure that my referral network is rich in people who are culturally sensitive and understand our experiences. I could speak to, living in America, our experiences as Black women.
Yes to all of that, right? Yes, and then some. Those are real experiences, and navigating through that. I love how you gave those solutions, making sure your referral list is full of culturally sensitive, culturally responsible, culturally informed, all the culturally things, because we want to make sure that you're feeling safe in those therapeutic spaces. So yeah, thank you for that. Bernadette, what have you seen from your side?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that Tara just said, absolutely. Yes, yes, and yes. I, as a first time mom, when I had my first one almost 13 years ago, I had the privilege to be in some spaces with, like mommy and baby and mommy and this, and I would look around me, and there was no other Black mothers, right? So I came to this country. I live in Canada. I came to this country as a child. So I navigate these spaces very easily. The culture, everything is very familiar to me. But when I became pregnant and when I gave birth, my mother and I often have this conversation. She says, "You didn't birth like me, you birthed like my mother." I had this visceral, like, it was a physiological, it's physical need to, I birthed at home. There's all the cultural, anything, like all the download from my ancestors, they came upon me, and then that's how I want to co-sleep. I want to do this. I breastfed until he was 5. Like, there's so many things that I wanted to do naturally. Whereas, the impact of colonization, for example, my mother, like, she wanted to breastfeed, but it was a sign of, economic, like, you're thriving economically if you also bottle feed, because you're able to buy formula or things like that, right? So there's a lot of things that I very naturally, I came and I put a full stop, and not because they're bad, but just because they didn't apply to how I wanted to mother. And so I had to understand that. I had to combat the system a little bit, but also I had to be in spaces. I had to find my spaces, because, like I said, a lot of mothers that had the same values maybe either didn't look like me, or they didn't have the opportunity to have access to the spaces I had access to. So that is really hard, like the money aspect to it, like being able to attend a mommy baby class. Not everyone can do that. Being able to say, I'm going to stay home for over, I don't know how many, no, not so many people can say, I can do it, right? Even though they would love to do it. The fear of taking your kids away is a big one. Like, if I say that I'm not well, if I say that I'm struggling a little bit, who's going to tell on me, and next, what's going to happen? That's a big fear. So part of my research, so what I'm looking at through my research is, I'm looking at postpartum depression and anxiety disorders in Black women. And my argument is basically, we're going to get sicker and sicker because we have by saying we is by adopting the colonial system, we have completely erased communities, and the village is non-existent anymore. And the village now is costly. You want to have a village, you need to pay for someone to come and clean your house. You need to pay for someone, and, like, you need to have the financial means to be able to have a village. And the thing is, people would love to come in and help you. However, they are also struggling. You have to have 1, 2, 3 jobs to also make sure that they provide for their family. So the idea of the village is not the same anymore. Communities are non-existent. We might have virtual communities. It is not the same. Let's face it. having someone like close to you, hug you, touch you, take it, like is not the same as, hey, I'm gonna get on a call with you. So my argument is relies on we've lost the village, and people are not designed to be alone. Villages were created where, like elderly people, and then like, you have elderly people that are taken care of, men are here, women are here, children are here, like there's a structure. That structure doesn't exist anymore. And then you add the layers of single mothers, or single father household, like one parent. You add the layers of maybe one parent being sick, or whatever that may be. The structures are not the same anymore. And then you add in capitalism and then neoliberalism. I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody. And then this is your house. It's like mom, dad, in a very like heterosexual conversation, mom, dad, 2 kids and their dog, and that is it. So if we continue like that, we are going to get sicker and sicker. So my the solution, I guess, that I offer, or what I'm trying to see, is if we go back to ancestral ways, if we go back to community care, if we go back to, let's take care, let's mother the mother, then the mother can better mother the child. How would that look? Would that actually help, right? But I'm putting an emphasis on culturally sensitive care. So I am from Africa. I'm from Cameroon specifically. And there's things that cultural knowledge that my parents gave me that's maybe not the same for Tahara and not the same for Steph, right? And although we are Black women, we might have different cultural needs, and that is important to acknowledge. So when you go to the doctor and you maybe express with the language that you have, that you own, and you express how you're feeling, they can say, oh, okay, maybe they have the humility to say, I don't know how to help you, but let me find someone that can, right? I don't know how I can help you, but in my, like just Tahara said, I can reference, like I can give you a reference to this person. That person might actually help you. So we need to have better equity, like a better healthcare system that acknowledges everybody in the diaspora, like everybody in the on the spectrum. And if we look at Black people, because we're not homogeneous, everyone, from the diaspora to, the motherland, to the Caribbean, to however the experience is, we should have someone that we should have someone that can help us with our personal lived experiences. So I think that is absolutely important. And because there's not that many folks that look like us in the healthcare, we could definitely have allies that are informed on the topic, that are also humble enough to understand that they might not be able to help us, but they might know someone that can help us. And part of that healthcare community, it's not just the doctor, the nurse, and the therapist. There's so many other practitioners, and they're different calling, the different gifts. So as a embodied dancer, I can help, because if the person says, well, I feel better when I'm moving this way, that 1 hour a week will help me, well, then connect me with her, and then we can work on, the whole thing. And then one more thing I wanted to add: you cannot discuss mental health issues or mental health or postpartum if you don't look at all the other social determinants. Okay, so maybe that person is experiencing postpartum depression because of outcomes of the birth, but food scarcity, poverty, trauma from whatever, like we will never come to healing depression or anything like that if you don't look at everything else that surround that person's lived experience and reality. Thank you.
For sure. Not 100%, 1000%, because it's impossible. It's not just hard, it's impossible if you just put postpartum depression or anxiety or even aggression, because that's what I experienced. I didn't have depression or anxiety, I had aggression. but it was because of socioeconomical things, right? And they have to all be included. And even that has to be decolonized, because if you just look at it from one way, then yes, someone would say, I just have it for this, but I live in a mansion and I have food places all over. We have, right. I love that, including it in totality. And you gave a great segue, Bernadette, into my next question, which is, what responsibility or how do healthcare providers need to frame questions or notice signs so that they can start addressing these postpartum issues? And it can be for any practitioner, right? It's not just for Black practitioners of health or any therapist, anyone. It's for anyone who sees Black mothers, right? And so I want to make that distinction that we are all Black practitioners, but it doesn't mean that every Black mother goes to a Black primary care physician or Black therapist, right? So these are things that we need to be telling those who are maybe not in the diaspora, they don't have our cultural experiences. What are some things and what is the responsibility that they have to notice those postpartum issues in Black mothers? Because if you see all clients, you should be culturally informed in how to deal with all clients.
I could speak to clinicians because obviously, after you have a baby, there's a screening, but screening should occur, assessment should occur multiple times, right? When you're seeing someone, not just at the 6-week postpartum visit. A lot of times pediatricians see our clients way more during that first year than an obstetrician, right? So making sure that they're normalizing asking questions. How are you doing? How's breastfeeding doing? How is baby adjusting to home? How are you adjusting to baby being home? What supports do you have? And then just thinking about screenings. So if any clinicians are watching, the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale you can use, the PHQ-9, that's a scale it's a measure for depression. GAD-7 is a measure for anxiety. So making sure that we're using those clinical measures in therapy or when you're seeing these patients, because that's going to give you information on where they are, right? And so you're making sure that you're tracking their progress pretty much through those measures. Again, providers need to know referrals, right? If you're scoring high on that postnatal depression scale, okay, so do you have a therapist? Do you have a psychiatrist? What support are you getting, with your mental health? And then I would also say when you're screening and those screens are high, following up, making sure that you're giving them resources as well, support groups for mom. I think it's really important to follow up, right? Just because they scored high on this measure, making sure that they are getting the help that they need and following up that they got it. Because we could tell them what we recommend, but are they actually following through? And sometimes people don't, and that's okay. There's no shame, right? It's a new experience, but we want to make sure that we are always asking questions and always making sure that our clients, our patients, are getting the help that they need.
I love that. Not just recommending something, but the follow-up. Mothers forget all the time. I feel like your brain just tries to leave you, your thoughts just run away. And so it's like, wait a minute. So yes, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Recommending, but do the follow-up just to make sure that they're actually taking advantage of those resources. Thank you for that. Bernadette, please.
I think I'll have you repeat the question again for me.
Absolutely. So what are the ways, or how should primary care physicians, therapists, people in the healthcare industry, how should they be showing moms how to deal with postpartum, or how should they be screening? What should they be offering to moms so that they can recognize the signs of postpartum? We want to make sure that, and I'll add the piece that I added on. This wasn't in the original question, but the piece I added on was, it's important for all practitioners to know, even those who aren't in the African diaspora, because if they see Black moms, they need to know what to recognize and what to recommend for them dealing with those postpartum things.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, I now remember. Thank you. I was so invested in what Tahara said, I forgot the question. So I remember, so I had a midwife. I had midwife with my three pregnancies and my 3 births. And I recently actually spoke with my first midwife on our experience, and we had to do, both of us had to do some healing on how things went through, because like I said, it was a very traumatic birth, and I had to do a transfer of care before going back to being going back to my midwife after everything was stabilized. And I remember her telling me that she quickly noticed in the way I was speaking about myself and how I was behaving, that something wasn't right. And I remember her telling me, okay, usually we do I think it's over 6 weeks that they continue seeing mom and baby here in Canada. But she told me, she asked me for permission to continue seeing me for a few more weeks after. And she was a new-ish midwife at the time, but she told me that something that helped her notice that I wasn't doing well is because, and I think that's also the beauty with how midwifery works, is that you spend hours and hours and hours, and when you go see them during your pregnancy, it's not like an hour like it's not an hour meeting and then, okay, very quickly you need to make sure baby is fine and then you go. You get to know the person. So we built a relationship, right? Before I had baby, and she saw the person, understood a bit like the persona, the character, and then saw that there was a drastic disconnect or drastic change after. And then it wasn't like the first day or the second day or whatever, just because we know, hormonally speaking, we go through a roller coaster and there's like so many things, but it was like the subtle little things. When we started this conversation, we spoke about resilience, and we spoke about how we were raised by mothers, grandmothers, aunties that, probably struggled a lot, but didn't show. And at the time, maybe we wouldn't have been able to recognize that they were struggling. So what happens when you see someone that looks like they have it all together, but they're struggling, right? And I think it's hidden in the layers, in the in betweens, and in the the subtlety of how the person behaves. But to get to that, I think you need to get to know the person, or you maybe get to know their village if they have one, and then maybe their village can come to you as a practitioner and say, like for me, my midwife, she would come at home, my mom would be there. There were people that had conversation with her saying, like, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of like negative talking, there's a lot of, right? So I think that maybe these are alternative ways of doing, but I think we also need to acknowledge those, and because it's not always visible. There's a lot of us that are really good, really, really good at walking into this world where we're complete mess inside, but outside we look like there's nothing happening. So then what? Then what? It might not be your practitioner noticing. It might be your sister. You're actually maybe encouraging you to go, or maybe signaling so we can actually start helping mom. So I think those are also important to name.
Super important. And I love that whoever the practitioner is that's assisting the Black mom, right? If there's an opportunity, get to know the village, because we do. We are trained almost from birth. As soon as we come out of the womb, be strong, put on a strong face, don't show any weakness, don't show any cracking, any breaking. So we wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable sometimes sharing those moments of weakness, but our family members, they'll surely be like, yeah, she did this. So that is necessary and needed, even as cringe as we may feel, or even as annoyed as we may feel at them, right? It's necessary and needed for the practitioner to know our true and real feelings. I also like that you mentioned getting to know the patient, the client, right? That is important, especially for those who don't share the same culture, the same race, you know what I mean? And all those, getting to know who that person really is will help you navigate the best ways to care for them and the best team and systems to set up So I love that. Believe it or not, my wonderful ladies, we are nearing the end of this amazing conversation. I want to do not a shameless plug, it's a real plug. This conversation is going to continue. I'm actually going to be co-hosting another event at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I'll make sure to drop the link in everywhere that we are so that we can just be supported as Black mothers, because this journey is serious and we need to take it seriously. But thank you both for being on. I'm going to ask a final question. It's going to be the wrap up though. And it's a kind of a two-part. First part is it was kind of mentioned, right? Bernadette, you started touching on what the village can do, but what can partners, spouses, friends, family, all that, what can they do to help mothers navigating that postpartum space? We want some practical things they can do. And then at the end of that question, please let everybody know where they can find you on social media. You both have given such amazing insight, gems dropped everywhere. And LC, if you're still watching or going to rewatch, we thank you for what you were able to share in the time that you were here. I know people are going to want to connect, especially moms who are experiencing the things that we've explained. They want to know that there is support out there and how to reach you. So one, I'm just reiterating, please just say, how can our village, what can family members do to support mothers in that postpartum time? And then end at the tail with how people can reach you.
I would say that just be mindful of what you say to mom. Saying like you're overreacting or, you're just fine. Not helpful. Instead, you could say, tell me what's going on with you. Or just validating. That sounds really hard. Like you're going through something. Give yourself grace for what you're experiencing. I would say if you're a partner to someone who is entering into motherhood, telling them to make sure that they're prioritizing sleep, helping them watch baby for a few hours so they can take a nap if that's possible, making sure that you're protecting mom's rest. I watched a video the other day and a dad, you could see the mom in the background on the bed trying to sleep and the dad's playing with baby in the same room. It's like, come on. So, being mindful, mom's trying to sleep. You guys can go in the other room or you can go outside with the baby. Like, it's okay. Challenging the guilt that they feel about whatever they feel about, again, not being able to breastfeed, not being able to take baby home immediately because of something, or them still being hospitalized because of something, right? And really celebrating the small wins. You were able to walk outside today with baby and take a walk. Baby latched today, like that's a win. Baby smiled today, you smiled today, like really those little things. And I think that encourages them to keep going. Oh, and to find me on LinkedIn, I'm Tahara Debarrows, LMFT on LinkedIn. I have Facebook, Instagram for and also LinkedIn for my business, A Journey to Healing Counseling. Email info@ajourneytohealingcounseling.com if you want to connect or you have any other questions about CBT and postpartum, as that is my specialty. And then the website is www.ajourneytohealingcounseling.com.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bernadette, please.
So, oh my goodness, there's so many things. Just that question could be a whole conversation, but I'm going to try to be quick. So partners, and I'm going to share what worked for me. And I know it's very like what worked for me, but I think the message here is name what works for you and then have people figure it out, right? So if someone comes to you, what do you need? And sometimes that's the other thing though. Sometimes we don't know what we want, right? So you can also say that I don't know what I want, and then have people come up with like a list of ideas, and there's something in that list that will, stick to you. Me, I wanted to be surrounded. I wanted to have a house full of people, but what I wanted was be close to my baby. Actually, anybody taking my baby away gave me so much anxiety. So do my dishes, cook food, my laundry, my house, feed me, come and talk to me when I'm awake, but don't take my baby too far. And that took a long time actually for me to detach, because I had that guilt of birth didn't go properly. a lot of guilt, and then maybe I harmed him. Now I just, all my focus was on that child. So now that when people understood that I was focusing only on my baby and kind of forgetting about myself, they needed to take care of myself. So naming what you want, or saying I don't know what I want, and having people continuously like coming to you with ideas on how they can best support you. But my whole thing was, I just want to take care of that child, but the world was continuing, so make sure that my world is together. Something I did or I responded really well to, and I did after the fact, was I messaged mom, like my friends, my sister-in-laws or whatever, at nighttime. For some reason, when you're a new mom, right, during the day the sun is out shining, or the birds are like singing, everybody, at night, oh my goodness, it's like the anxiety is just there. It's like it's speaking to you, and then your child, and then is he breathing, and then, oh my gosh, night was really hard for me. And so messaging someone at night, maybe they won't answer, but seeing the message, someone was thinking about me. Someone was also up at 2 a.m. Someone might be, struggling too, and they thought about, like, that thought of someone is thinking about me. And, this experience felt like the biggest hug. So messaging the person when you think about them, but I'm going to put the emphasis on at night, is like, it's big. It was big for me. Holding space, coming to someone, not wanting to give them all the advice. I did this and this is what's going to work for you, but say, I'm here to listen. And you want me to share what worked for me. And, all the beautiful words of encouragement. And one more thing is, you might be going through postpartum depression. Your partner might also be going through something too. So not acknowledging what your partner is also going through is very important. One thing is, I wanted to say, Steph, you're doing this right now, like, and like sending all the questions, having this conversation, and there's a little baby beside you. You're a rock star. And we do it all, and we think it's like, oh, yeah, baby's scared, we do it. But I just want to say, it's not easy, and you did like beautifully. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and say, I see you, Mama. I see you. And where can you find me? I'm on LinkedIn, Bernadeth Betchi. I'm also on Instagram. My account is private, but add me and I'll do a background check. There's also like the whole, when you're out there and you have a family, you're trying to protect as much as you can. But find me on LinkedIn first, and then we can go from there. And I'm happy to participate in conversations like this. Invite me in person, it's even better. My vibe is even better in person. And continuing to make sure that mothers are seen and they're listened to. But when we take care of the mom, we take care of the whole village. So it is important that we also have a focus on what mama wants, and not to exclude anybody else, but focusing on our well-being is absolutely important. It's a pleasure for me today, and I'm so honored to have participated in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for all of that. I want to say this too, right? Because you mentioned something really good, and we're wrapping up. I think people think, oh, let me take the baby away from mom. Mom doesn't like it, and neither does the baby. So let's put that to rest. I don't know where that ideology came from. I'm sure it was good intention and well thought. Don't take the baby from mom. Do all the things that moms usually do, right? The cooking, the cleaning, ironing, laundry. Village, you do that. Let mama and baby continue to bond. That baby was inside of us for almost 10 months. There's no reason for us to have separation at that early stage. Oh, let me take the baby. Let me take the baby. Thank you. The thought is kind, but it's actually not helpful to mom or baby. So thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to say that, village, this is information for you too. This conversation was so beautiful. It's not going to be the last. We're going to continue the conversation. Thank you both so much for your insight. It's practical. That's all we want, right? There's terminologies we can use, there's things we can say, but we have walked away with practical things that moms can do, the village can do, practitioners who see Black mothers. This was so helpful. Thank you both so much. And LC, thank you so much wherever you are. We appreciate you. Look, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. We will see you on the next episode. Have an amazing day, night, evening, wherever you are in the time zone. And we will see you next time. Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you.